Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Paul Vanas and welcome to Real Estate Pro Talk. This is a real estate-oriented program which will cover a variety of topics every Friday afternoon from 3 to 4 p.m. here on WOON Radio. Some of the topics we'll be talking about during our time together will be how to buy and sell a home, how to choose a real estate agent, how to choose a mortgage broker, flipping real estate, staging a home, home inspections, private mortgage financing, and a whole lot more. I've been in the real estate business coming up on 40 years now, of which I own a real estate brokerage company, a real estate school, and a land development company. All of the knowledge that we're going to try to impart on you today is based on the continuing education classes that I teach licensed real estate brokers and agents, along with my personal experience and those of our expert guests. The goal in doing this is so you'll have the information in hand when you meet a seasoned real estate broker. Today, I'd like to welcome Joe Garlick and Meg Rego of NeighborWorks. Joe and Meg are responsible for quite a few projects in the Northern Rhode Island area, the Blackstone Valley area, some of which are affordable projects, and the reason really why I wanted to get you guys on is because there's such a misconception with affordable. When you mention affordable housing, I know, when I go in front of a planning board or a zoning board, or you just mention to neighbors in a neighborhood the word affordable, and all of a sudden they think the world is going to crash around them. And I try to explain to these folks that affordable just means that many people can't afford to go back to the communities that they grew up in, and it's nice to have some sort of means to be able to do that. So welcome, guys. Nice to
Thank you.
Have you here today.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
Great.
Yeah.
So NeighborWorks, we'll get into the origins of that, but I always like to ask everyone, because I'm kind of an amateur historian, how did you guys get to where you are today? What did you do first? Did you just jump into housing, or was there something that led to this?
We were just talking about our days back at PC, and had a couple of really interesting professors who, I took a couple of classes in urban studies, wow. And it just kind of caught my attention. I decided after that I'd go to graduate school. I got a degree in city planning, and I always like to build stuff just personally, so it was kind of the best of both worlds. I liked the planning piece of it, and I liked building stuff. So
that's
affordable
great.
housing seemed like a natural to me.
So this is something that you've basically always wanted to do, then?
Yeah.
This is something you didn't switch gears because,
No,
I notice a lot of the kids going to college now, my son's friends, about half of them changed their majors 2 years in. I always knew what I wanted to be, and it sounds like you always knew what you wanted to be. But how about you, Meg?
So we've got apparently a Catholic college history between all of us. I went to Villanova University outside of Philly and studied political science. And then after I graduated, I had no idea what I wanted to do.
Really?
And I was fortunate to get hired by Joe and his team into a year of AmeriCorps service with NeighborWorks Blackstone River Valley, right down the street about 15 years ago. And so it was my first introduction to what affordable housing looks like. It was my first introduction to this wonderful community of Woonsocket in Northern Rhode Island. And from there, I continued my education, worked in several other cities, but was fortunate to get to come back to this community that I'm really passionate about and care about, and get to use my skills as a grant writer and communications specialist to support the work right here in Northern Rhode Island.
Yeah, so you're an implant like me.
Yeah.
I grew up in Providence, and for a kid from Providence, when Socket was that place up on 146 that no one ever went to, and then I moved up here, and it's almost like when you're an implant, you develop a special, savoring for the community that a lot of the locals, they probably once had a long time ago, but it feels like home now, right?
Absolutely. And I came from South Kingstown, so even a little further down, this really seemed like a whole nother state.
You were those Scarborough Beach people, right?
Yes, but it's really a wonderful community, and you can see that as you get to know the residents right here.
Wow, that's great. So NeighborWorks, I know both of you have defined this before. What is NeighborWorks, and what's the goal? What's the mission of NeighborWorks?
So we're a nonprofit, and we're what's called a community development corporation, a CDC. So in addition to our affordable housing, which is like our core mission to build affordable housing, to either build it or fix it up, we do a lot of other community development work to sort of enrich communities. Meg is really involved in the whole concert series on Main Street. We've done some.
Wow.
Yep, we got a big grant to bring a whole series of free concerts down to Main Street over the summer.
So that's beyond the scope of housing.
Yep. We think all this stuff, you put it together and you get great communities.
Wow.
So the housing is the foundation. That's
right.
That's my thing. Then all the other stuff, the music series, we have some space for small entrepreneurs. We got a incubator kitchen right on Main Street, right next to the museum there, the old Mulvey store.
Really?
So people who are starting food businesses can rent kitchen space and build that business. We run an after-school program in all our rental developments. So, parents who are often working long hours or 2 jobs is a safe place for their kids to go. The center has, we have it for elementary school kids, and we also have a program for middle and high schoolers.
Really?
So we add a lot on to the housing stuff.
Wow,
we think that's just a platform to start to do good stuff.
That's incredible. Just the management of all that and trying to accomplish, multiple goals other than the basic housing need is really difficult. I'm sure. You rate the grants. The grant money is so important. Money is like the lifeblood.
Oh, absolutely.
To any project, right?
Yes.
So where does the grant money usually come from?
And it definitely depends what you're going to do with that grant funding. And so Joe is most closely connected to all of the funding we find to support the development of our affordable housing. And then I do most of our work around our program grants. So we have great relationships with local banks and with other, like Blue Cross Blue Shield has been a really wonderful funder. We've worked closely with the Rhode Island Foundation. And we find that these local establishments care about this community life that we have going on here, and they want to invest in it. And so we're able to work closely with them to support the other endeavors that we do, like our youth programming and the incubator kitchen and all of those other pieces.
Wow, that's a lot of balls to juggle in the air at once. I got to tell you, it's just
we got a small staff, but we punch way above our weight class.
That's great. No, that's great.
We do the applications, but Meg and I were out there shoveling the plaza on Main Street today because there's a Main Street stroll tomorrow night, so we had to get it ready.
Wow, yeah, 'cause that's a big event. I've heard it advertised here on WO and several times.
Yeah, it'll draw a couple thousand people down to Main Street.
Wow, that's great.
To go in and out of the local businesses that are there, and that's another piece of what we're looking to do. So we want to support the overall vibrancy of this community, whatever that looks like, and economic development is really central and core to that. Right. So a lot of the properties that we work on actually have commercial space as a key element. So if you have people living somewhere, their kids are going to an after school program, you got a concert for them to go to, they can start their food business. You also need to have, the local shops to go in and out of to have employment opportunities and also your basic needs that you're able to purchase things.
And I can be honest with you, I missed that. I grew up in the city and of course, back when I was coming up, the goal was to get out of the city. The goal was to go someplace quiet at night.
How quickly things change, huh?
And
It's a total change now.
Right.
People want to be in a city.
Exactly. It's kind of turned around. Back when I started in the real estate business, Providence real estate was like a house in Providence was probably a third more than a house in Burrillville, same size house. And then during the 80s, I don't know if it's the me generation or what happened, it kind of flip-flopped. The house in Burrillville was more expensive than the house in Providence, and now it's just the opposite again. So it's these cycles. And, I kind of miss that. I kind of miss just walking down to the corner store for a jug of milk instead of having to get in the car and, 3 red lights and, 5 tractor trailers being stuck behind and 4 school buses and everything else, and then, come home a day later. But affordable housing, now that's a very defined term. Obviously, there is a need right now for affordable housing, right?
Yes, there is. Yep. Rhode Island's in a particularly, tough situation. Rhode Island's production of housing, period, lags the nation. We're like at the bottom of the pile when it comes to producing housing. And, even for-profit developers, Rhode Island's the last in the nation.
Really?
We pulled fewer building permits last year than anybody else in the country.
Wow.
So that has caused rents and everything to increase because, we're not producing the housing that helps keep the market in.
Stimulates it.
Yeah. So, but affordable housing is also particularly acute too. The shortage,
right?
But it's all tied together with housing production. Period.
Right.
And there is a great need. I don't know if you know Housing Works Rhode Island. They're based at Roger Williams University.
Yes.
They do a lot of an annual publication every year to show where we stand as a state, how many affordable units have been built, how many more we need. But they also focus on just the housing production system. Wow. So because it's all intertwined.
Now, Joe or Meg, either one. You read in the paper on the state level, we need more housing, we need more housing, we need more housing. But then you go out into the local communities, and they say, go away, go away, go away. Yeah. Like, for example, we did a project in a town in Northern Rhode Island, and the things that we had to go through to get this thing completed, and unfortunately, by the time the project was said and done, the cost of everything was so high. You have to ask an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. That's the affordable housing conundrum right there, because developers have all these costs that have to be added in because it's the time, the cost. That's part of the problem with the affordable housing crisis.
Right.
That time delay, all those extra costs. We have the same problem. Although we just finished a big project out in Burrillville, it was 96 apartments. Couldn't ask for more support from a town.
Route 100,
out on Route
right?
100,
Yeah,
exactly.
Beautiful looking project.
Yeah, we did a couple of buildings on Main Street that were mixed use. We work with the redevelopment agency, and they have some commercial space on the first floor. They just, there's a health center there expanded, but there's also a microbrewery that just opened up on one. Yeah, I guess it's quite the hot spot.
Bravo Brewing. They have, it's a veteran-owned business. A certain portion of their proceeds actually go back to veteran nonprofits. And I was there for opening day. My gosh, there was a line out the door. So you've got your brewery on one side of the street, and you've got your health center right across the way, and affordable one-bedroom and studio apartments above that.
Nice. Nice.
It's a real different feeling. Well, Main Street feels the same. The buildings have similar architecture. It's got that, really old-fashioned charm, and yet it's bustling again, which feels really nice.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I just, I'm at the age now I watch PBS. I never used to watch PBS, but I watch PBS now, and I watched the Life and Times of Austin Levy the other night, which is the gentleman who was responsible for bringing a lot of the mills.
That's one of our projects.
And into Burrillville, and I noticed in the collage of photographs they were showing in the special, the Stillwater Mill was something you were involved in as well, right?
Yeah. Again, great partnership with the town. They were looking for a partner to develop that site. we were available. It was at a crazy time when the economy kind of tanked in 2008, 9, 10. But great partnership with the town. They really helped us get that project done.
Yeah, and that it takes a lot of stamina on your part, because we had Tom Kravitz here a few weeks ago, and his I could never do your job or his job because I don't have the patience. I mean, you really you're thinking on a whole different scale of time, where the rest of us are worried about next month or next year. You're almost talking decades on something.
We're in it for the long run, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But Tom was an amazing partner. He helped with both those projects we've just finished up in Burrville. He got them going, and they got a new planner there, great guy, Rego. Tom's one of the better planners around.
Yeah, and it's such a beautiful, it turned out, I remember driving by there for years, going over the bridge there and looking to the left, and it was I was saying, my God, no one is doing anything with this. It's just sitting there, and of course the historical aspect of it as well. Yeah. I'm sure that made a lot of the townspeople proud to see the resurrection of the site.
Yeah, the redevelopment agency there, Jim Langlois is the head of it. They have a vision in Burrville. They really want their little village centers to come back, and they realized that affordable housing was going to help them do that. I know that Stillwater Mill had sat languishing for quite a while. Right. Same with those Pasco properties. The town had been trying to get those off the ground, and it's, like I said, it's that partnership that can make that stuff happen.
So how long, for example, the Pasco project, how long does it take from start to finish for something like that?
That's
on average.
It's the most extreme example, but that one took about 15 years.
Wow.
And that wasn't all because of anything the town did, because once we had everything, it was a 200-acre site.
Right.
So there was a lot of work to do there. And as a nonprofit, we don't always have the cash to move it along as fast as you otherwise could. A private developer would say, okay, I'm in there, I'm going to just get this done.
So you do so much, wait for funding,
exactly,
do so much, wait for funding.
Exactly.
Okay.
The worst way to do it, way to do it. But, from when we really had all our ducks in a row, it was about a 5-year project, from all the approvals, all the pre-development work, the approvals, and completion. So, it wasn't bad, but then there was 10 years before that where we were, piecing it all together.
Yeah, wow. And then while doing all these other things, bringing music to communities and bringing
and shoveling Mulvey's Plaza. I had a lot on my plate.
But the outcome is so impressive. You drive into Green Ridge, as the development that we have in Pasco, and it looks like a bunch of little townhomes. And as you're driving by, you see families who have decorated their doors. You've got all of the Thanksgiving decorations, and I swear they have a competition between one another. But you have 96 families that now have access to housing that's affordable to them, which then has so many other benefits for a community. So if you're only paying, we determine housing to be affordable if you're paying about 30% of your income on your housing, right? So now you have all the rest of your income that you are able to invest elsewhere. You can save, you can look into additional, educational opportunities. You can go to the store and buy what you need for your family on a regular basis. And that's the type of security that we're able to provide to families.
Wow. And funny that, Meg, when I started in the real estate business many moons ago, 28% was a qualifying ratio that we were all taught as new real estate agents to use. It was 2836. For our audiences, you took their gross income and you times it by 28%, and that was their annual housing expense that we all had to meet at that time. And of course, 36% was all other debt. So the debt, if they had credit card or a car loan or something on top of the 28, could be no more than 36. And we've watched that creep up and creep up and creep up. And I'll be honest with you, when I bought my first house with 28% as my debt ratio, I had it, I had enough to eat at Burger King maybe once a week. It was not a real fortuitous situation, especially if you need other things and emergencies and in life. But what are the what's the typical profile of the affordable buyer? What do they look like? What are they financially? Is it a couple? Is it a single person? What how does that work?
Sure. So we do two things. We help to develop affordable rental properties, and then we also have some affordable homes that we support folks in purchasing their home, their first home, their second home, that at affordable rate. All the folks we're working with, they have jobs. Their families will range in size. It can be a single person, but we have larger family units that people are looking into. But the job that they're in at that portion, or the combination of their jobs that they're doing, is just not, they're not making enough money to potentially purchase or rent on an open market. So to put this in dollars and cents, for a single person, you're considered to be lower income right now today if your annual income is $45,000 or less. If you look at that for a family, you're talking about a family of four. If your combined income is less than $65,000, that would make you eligible for some of the properties that we have. And so we work with CNAs, we work with teachers' assistants, bus drivers, different forms of laborers, people that we all know.
Absolutely.
And the services that we offer help these folks to be able to attain the type of life that I think all of us are just looking for.
Sure. No, and that's and those numbers are not unrealistic because of the people I qualify when they call me on a property, and I get a rough idea of what their earnings are. They're right in line. It's almost like that should be the norm and not be labeled affordable,
right?
Based upon what's out there. Because we went in front of a planning board a couple of years ago in the state here, and we wanted to go 100% affordable. And there was this misnomer about affordable, and all of a sudden everyone from the planning board all the way down to the residents of the neighborhood where the project was going to go, I mean, they came out in droves, and they thought we were just going to destroy their neighborhood for some reason, and it was completely unfounded. And I got up on the microphone and I said, look, we're creating the community that you had when you moved here 40 years ago, because those were the qualifying ratios that you had when you moved here in 1975 and 1982. It's really no different. However, the look of the construction may be a little bit different because we have to make, we can't build a sprawling ranch for everyone. We have to build an apartment style or a townhouse style unit. So those affordable buyers that you have, I'm sure there must be a backlog of people who are standing in line to get an affordable unit.
Yeah, we help about 60, 75 people buy their first home.
Wow.
Around the area. They go through our home ownership center. We got people who work with them on credit stuff, savings, all that stuff. But that project we did in Barville is a rental piece of it, but there's also a home ownership piece. There's 30 affordable homes for first-time buyers.
Really?
And it's an interesting, different kind of development because the families actually build the homes themselves.
I see.
We have someone on site who schools them in the construction. They do about 2/3 of the work on the house. And obviously we have electricians and plumbers and we hire those folks to do that kind of technical work. But they work together as a group, and inside of a year, 13 months, they all move in together at the same time. It's
so what do they have, like different plans to choose from?
We have two
where you
plans.
all know, your contractors know what the dollar value of the materials are, obviously.
Yeah,
right?
we have two plans they can pick. We got a ranch, and we got a salt box kind of house.
Okay.
And they can pick from those. They all have at least 3 bedrooms, and we have space that's unfinished, like in the attic, if they want to add another bedroom later on. Yeah. But I can appreciate your planning board meetings, and but one of my favorite things that always happens after you've been through the planning board war is it never fails. After we've gotten projects approved, someone in the audience, usually someone who's been at every hearing, saying they don't want me there, they don't want this housing. They say, my kid, fill in the blank, my mother, needs a place to live. How can I get an application? When it's done, people realize that it's not the bad situation that is in their mind.
Exactly.
So
I just think it's just a stigma. I don't know if it's the word affordable. I think they associate it with urban plight, that they've seen on the news, all their life, which has nothing to do with it, but it's just a stigma It's almost like they got to come up with a new name. To just get rid of that moniker and move on to something else.
Which is so crazy because, I don't want an unaffordable house. Like that's just setting all of us up for a lot of failure that I'm sure when you're coaching, folks into purchasing a home, you're not like, you should go for this one. It's going to be way outside of your price spread.
It's as much as you can afford.
Right.
Definitely want to go for that one.
And after you buy, go out and lease a BMW on top of it. That'll really make life interesting, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you just think of your own family. Your children are just starting out. You got parents who are retired, and if you look at your own life, you can see where the need is. Sometimes people don't make all those connections,
especially with raising rates of healthcare as people age, or the rates of college as people are coming out of school, starting a job at whatever the rate is, and trying to pay school loans back and live in a place that maybe is not their parents' house. It could be good for everybody.
And even in professions, I spoke to a client whose son just got out of law school, and he has to clerk for a year with in the courts, and the pay is $22,500 a year. So, you would think, well, he's a hotshot lawyer. He just passed the bar. He's going to be making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. Well, no. I mean, that may come in the future later on if he's a good enough lawyer.
Right.
But, this really hits home with everyone because the numbers you mentioned may fall right into the people that I qualify the most. I don't seem to get the people that call me and say, hey, Paul, I'm looking for a $2 million house and I have $500,000 to put down. What can you find? It's always, I got just about the 3.5% for the FHA mortgage, and I'm going to need a gift for the closing cost. And I may have had a couple of credit scrapes a couple of years ago, and how do I repair that, and so on and so forth. And maybe it's just me. Maybe that's what I attract. But I enjoy dealing with those people the most because they're the most appreciative at the end of the day after the closing.
That's same folks. Folks. And that's Rhode Island's labor force. We're talking about housing the people who work in the industries that make Rhode Island a good place to live and create, wealth in the economy here. Those are the folks that make it happen.
Absolutely. So the projects that you've done, you've mentioned, Stillwater, you've mentioned Burrillville. I was looking at your website. I mean, there's a whole host of projects that you've been involved in. What is the general makeup of those projects? Are they mostly rentals, or are they like this Burrillville project sounds like a hybrid ownership / rental? What do they usually look like?
We do both. We've done. We've developed probably over 100 homes for first-time home buyers, and we have about 450 apartments that we've done. So, we've done more apartments just because that need is very great. We do all kinds of different projects. We've done those mill rehabs. That Green Ridge project in Barville is new construction. In Woonsocket, we've done a lot of rehab, we have a project on Main Street that we're hoping to get going. The old, right behind the museum, the Island Place, and the Gary Fernandez restaurant there.
River Falls.
River Falls. You have the river back there. It's beautiful. It really is picturesque.
So we've done a lot of different types of development.
I see. So the hybrid type project sounds really interesting to me because I've always volunteered my time for Habitat for Humanity when we'd put a house together and so on and so forth. But there's so many vacant lots around that are just unoccupied that could be beautifully suited for a single family or a multi-family house. And then of course they have to get the financing, which is a whole different category. Financing a new construction is a little different. I found that too out with buyers. If they want to finance a single family, it's fine, but once they say 2, 3, or 4 unit, it's a whole different world in the financing arena, and which is really sad because it should be the same.
Right. It puts cities like Woonsocket at a disadvantage.
Right.
When the hoops you got to jump through for multifamily property.
Because if you think about it in reverse, the buyer is stronger in a multifamily house than they are in a single family house because they have the rental income coming in, which makes the mortgage much more secure than if something happens on the job, an injury or something at a single family house, and that's a problem. Wow.
And we try to support folks with those endeavors. So we have a home ownership center is one of the programs that we run, which provides education to individuals that are looking to buy a home. We also have a landlord training class that our home buyers provide. And so our homeowner coaches offer. And so I know that when people purchase a multifamily home, often to get their mortgage, they actually have to have a certificate saying that they've gone to a home buyer education class and that they've gone to a landlord training. And so we offer a one-day landlord, here's the landlord laws, here's the tenant laws to help those landlords be really successful.
Yeah, we saw, like you said, lenders, there were more hoops when you, and so we said, we should be offering this so people can
because
get through that hoop to get their financing.
Because a landlord, you're essentially, it's a business, and a lot of folks are not business oriented,
small
so
business.
they have to understand, just like any other business, you have to do certain things. There's rules, there's regulations, and so on and so forth. Wow, that's great. Well, we're going to take a 1-minute commercial break, and we will be right back with Joe and Meg.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And we are back with Joe Garlick and Meg Rio of NeighborWorks. And, of course, I'd like to give a real estate tip this week. With the cold weather, in spaces that have very little heat, everyone makes a mistake of putting the heat on 50 in a vacant house or in a vacant room. When the weather turns really cold, 50 degrees on the thermostat does not cut it, because that furnace or boiler is really working overtime. You should really keep the thermostat in a particular room on at least 60, if not 65. I know it's more expensive to do that, but I've had situations where the house has been, vacant house is left at 50 degrees, and then we go there a couple of days after a cold snap, and the pipes are frozen, and we can hear water leaking and whatnot. So that's our tip of the week. So, guys, what are the difficulties in having the towns create affordable housing? We talked a little bit about how there may be a natural aversion to it, but at some point, the towns have to really get with it. At some point, when someone's own child can't come back to the town that they grew up in, is it at that point they're going to wake up and say, well, maybe we should look at this a little differently?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we've had some good relationships. In other places, they haven't quite caught on yet,
right.
Because, I think there is a point where, and I think Rhode Island is getting to that point now where affordable housing is a statewide issue. I know the governor had convened a forum a couple of weeks ago with the Commerce Department. Businesses who are coming into the state want to know where their employees can afford to live. So I think it's at a level now where even state government is really paying attention to places, developing housing where employers can have employees live. Right. And, if towns want to attract those types of businesses within their borders,
right.
Businesses are starting to ask this question.
Wow.
So
and
what are you doing?
That's huge.
Yeah,
that's huge because
I think it's shifted.
You struck a nerve because you just reminded me of I don't know, it was about 15 years ago when Fidelity was bringing people in, and the people that were coming down from New Hampshire had no problem finding housing in Rhode Island, but the people that were coming from Utah, they had no idea the cost. The housing price was like double of what it was in Utah, and unfortunately, they couldn't take the job. They had to get back on the plane and go home.
Yeah.
So.
And there's a benefit to having your workforce, live and work and be in community all in the same town when you think of how, that's going to lead to additional engagement in schools, or you're going to have the ability to pick your kid up after your job from whatever, daycare facility they might be in. There's a benefit of having, housing that everybody who works in a community can actually afford to live in that same community, which means you need it at all different levels.
Absolutely. Yeah. So are there any incentives? I know there are, I shouldn't say incentives for nonprofit, but are there any for-profit developer incentives that are out there that would incite a developer to take on a project like this?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the funding sources that we use for private developers can absolutely apply, and get financing that way. And I talk to for-profit developers all the time, who are interested in figuring out how to do that. A lot of communities have requirements now, so they want a certain number or a certain percentage of a subdivision. They want a set aside of affordable units. It's complicated. It's more complicated than just, going to a lender and developing. Right. So you got to kind of... a little learning curve involved, but I think I see a lot of developers now who are interested in. It's like, okay, this is the right thing to do too, and with some of the sources we get, that can make it work for a developer.
Wow.
So
not to jump backwards, guys, but do you think there's a lack of new construction only because we are the smallest state in the union. It's just that there's not enough land left, or is it something that's a greater problem?
Yeah. I think that's a big part of it. I mean, Rhode Island, the land resources. We are the smallest state, but I also think our regulatory process makes it hard. Whether you're building or rehabbing, sometimes you're rehabbing a building. There are lots of layers there that can slow things down. So I think land is absolutely part of it, but the regulatory environment, could probably make that not as difficult a situation too.
Because there's some creative things that can be done. Like we did a project where the development required 20% of the development was affordable. And we asked the planner in that particular town, can we go out and buy other properties? And instead of having the 20% inside the development affordable, can we turn around and take the properties that we bought, as long as it's the same number of properties in the same community? And he said, he goes, fine, no problem, as long as our housing stock doesn't change. So do you see any of that going on? Do you see any, I know the nonprofit world and the for-profit world are two different animals, and first and foremost is the land. The land cost. I mean, the landowner wants the money for the land that they've been sitting on for years and years and years, and they said, well, someday this is going to be my retirement or whatever. But the reality of it is that after you figure out all the costs associated with it, the land is worth maybe 5% or very little of the deal. So do you see anything like creative stuff going on in that world?
Yeah, at the end of the day, it costs what it costs, and how we make it affordable is with those grants and low interest loans, and where our profit margin is not the same as a for-profit developer. We do things a little differently, so that those grants that we get help support that stuff. And you got really supportive lenders like Navigant, who come up with creative financing products for us to acquire and develop sites. It's
amazing when government is focused in on a particular issue. Like, for example, right now, I just put a solar system on my building, and my God, the incentives. They're giving me a 30% tax credit. They're giving me bonus depreciation. They're giving me 20 cents a kilowatt hour for the next 10 years guaranteed. I mean, so it just seems like when government focuses in on a problem and they really want to tackle it, they can get it done.
Yeah.
But then other issues, they're kind of in the middle there, and maybe someday we'll deal with this. And of course it's tough because it's all about money, it's all about taxation, and there's only so much money to go around. So the rentals that you do, right? A lot of the projects are rentals you had mentioned. How does that work? Are these folks they come to you and get qualified for the rental?
Yep. So we'll develop it, and the big rental program is the housing tax credit. It's a federal program, and a lot of sort of socially motivated investors will buy these credits, and so they get a write-off on their federal tax return, and that does the lion's share of our financing. So then we only have a little gap to fill. So that's what allows our rents to be affordable there. But people will come to the office, they'll apply, and Meg read out the income guidelines. Rental's a little lower, but so people single person earning from about 34. And a family earning about 57 would qualify for the rental.
That's
so it's a little lower than a home ownership.
Yeah, but it's still quite a few individuals.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, a lot of the folks who get our apartments work in the nursing homes around town. They work at the retail stores. Young families just starting out. So they'll come apply, and we'll we gotta. Because the IRS oversees this tax credit program, so there's a bit of paperwork, but we walk people through that, and inside of a couple of weeks they can get an apartment if they qualify.
Really?
Although we have a big waiting list, so we got upwards of 1,000 people on our waiting list for apartments. Yeah.
Wow. So I could see why you need more housing stock.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you see that in the market for people who want houses.
Yeah, absolutely.
Supply's not there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you get people. I get people that like a ridiculous. I mean, it's so close the qualifications, and unfortunately, I mean, sometimes it comes down to $20 a month. Yeah. I call it a cup of coffee a day. Yeah. It comes down to that close, and then I have to look at it and say, I'm in business. I'm in the sales business. Yeah. Do I really want to put these kids in a position where they can't even afford to go, go to Burger King? I use Burger King as an example for everything because that's what I used to, to do. And then you try to be like the adult. Yeah. And sometimes I'll have people walk into my office, and I'll tell them right out, guys, you really shouldn't be buying this now. Yeah. If you could stay down in mom and dad's basement for a little longer, or something, and they go, okay, and they leave, and then I look in the real estate transfers 2 months later, and they went down the street to somebody else, and they said, oh, the heck with him, we know what we want. So it's.
We have the same issue at a home ownership center. We refuse to put people in a situation where their life's going to take a turn for the worst. Right. After being overhoused and paying too much. People sometimes have stars in their eyes and are not thinking as clear as they should be because you want that at first house.
Absolutely.
Just got to be careful.
Absolutely.
And we have HUD certified coaches that will actually work with individuals to think through those things like you just said. So, do you want to not be able to ever go to Burger King, or do you want to, give up your family vacations? And they'll work with individuals and say, okay, here's your budget, here's your dream home and how much it's going to cost, and how can you adjust this? Do you need to stay, living with family or friends for a little longer to save up a down payment, which will reduce your monthly rate? Or do you need to get a different job where maybe you're making a little bit more money, or take on a second job, but or do you need to adjust? Maybe your vacation is, a cruise that costs a lot of money, and you need to know ahead of time to make those adjustments in order to get at that goal.
Maybe you should drive up to Lincoln, New Hampshire for a couple of days instead
Beautiful.
of taking the boat, right?
Yeah, exactly.
like I still do, right? All right. So that rent, and it's funny you say that, Meg, because education, especially new construction when it's a custom home. I'll look at a young couple, and it sounds kind of rude. I'll say to them, how was your marriage? And they look at me like, I said,
when did you become a priest over here giving us marital advice?
Right. I said, and the only reason why I asked that question is that when you build a brand new home, you're going to be put in the position of making a lot of choices, and part of those choices you may like, and the other half may like, and then it becomes a debate. And I don't want to see the debate turn into, divorce court on TV. I don't want to see you guys in front of Judge Joe Brown on a Friday afternoon. But the education is so important for that aspect of it. So the rents, how are those? Are they set by the government? Are they set by the local community? Is it based on the median rental in a community? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. So it is Big Brother, the IRS and HUD set these rents. So and they do surveys. They'll do. It won't be a rent based on them just looking at something in D.C. They'll do surveys in Rhode Island and say, okay, here's the median rent here. This is what your cap is.
So they know by
we're rent controlled.
Census data tells them exactly what's going on. Okay,
and they do it every year, and we got to comply.
And I was just looking up. So an average 2-bedroom rent across Rhode Island is a little over $1,600 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment,
which includes utilities.
When you look at the properties that we have, that rent is going to be lower than that. It's going to be between $1,000, $1,200 somewhere in that.
A little over half.
Wow.
Somewhere in that range.
That's substantial.
Yeah. Right, because $1,600 a month when you're looking at that and you want to only spend a third of your income on housing in order to keep it affordable, that's a lot of money to spend.
Right,
You've got to have a pretty good chunk of change come in every month to be able to do that.
Yeah, Housing Works, they looked at the median wage paid in Rhode Island, and based on, the 30% rule, people can afford about $1,300 a month for rent. Wow. And the median's upwards of $1,600. And if you're in a minimum wage job, you can afford about $512 a month.
Wow. So that basically means you're living with someone. You
right.
You have to.
Right. You're living with mom and dad. You're living with friends, whatever. Yeah.
Well, with your roommate or whatever. Yeah. Wow. So the terms that these folks usually acquire, the rents are usually a lease. Is it a 1-year contract?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone gets a year lease.
Okay. And are there any special terms that are different from a regular lease that one would have from what a landlord?
No. It's like there's a few more. Because it is, regulated by the IRS, the lease is probably a little thicker than a private landlord would use. But bottom line is you got you got a year lease, and then you got to comply with. You got to be a good neighbor to your fellow tenants, and it's pretty much normal stuff.
I see. And the utilities are typically paid by the tenant, or
yes, yeah,
okay,
yeah. We have one development. It's a senior development where the utilities are included, but generally people pay their own utilities.
So they can control. They can control their own electric. Like my father, you're turning off the lights and so on and so forth.
And we do, like you were saying, how important education is. We have with our property management and our staff. We do some coaching with residents before they move in. So to say, you can leave every light on in the house if you want to, and this might be what your utility bill looks like. Or here, let's think about some of those apartments out in Pasco, everyone's initially putting in air conditioning units in their windows because you might come from a more urban environment where you're like, obviously it's summer and we need an AC unit. But if you turn on the ceiling fans and open the windows with all the extra trees around there, that's a pretty good cooling device. And so we try to provide a little bit of coaching or some guidance to say, here are some helpful ways to reduce those utility costs or keep them within reason.
There's a learning curve with everything. Wow.
And part of our development, we make sure we develop to Energy Star standards, so they're really energy efficient houses.
Nice. Yeah, they're all
to minimize
2x6 walls now, and they're all having to get blower door tests.
Yeah.
They pump air out of the house to see how much air is the house breathes, and it has to meet a certain criteria. Wow. Well, we're going to take one more commercial break. We got 8 minutes left, and we'll be right back.
Real Estate Pro Talk is a live radio talk show dedicated to educating its listeners on the entire spectrum of real estate matters. Part of the American dream is owning a home or investment property, or perhaps even becoming a real estate agent yourself. Paul Vanas and his team of real estate professionals have over 250 combined years of experience in the industry. In other words, we can make it happen for you. Why go down the road less traveled when we can put you directly on the real estate superhighway? Whether buying or selling in today's complicated real estate market, or if you just need advice about jumping into the real estate business for a career change, you'll need a decisive edge based on experience. Call Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144 for a free, no-obligation consultation. That's Paul Vanas at 401-265-6144.
And welcome back. We're still here with Joe and Meg of NeighborWorks. Guys, people kind of relate to things in a dramatic way now. Just ask my wife. She she watches all these shows on TV, and everything is drama. Lessons learned. Is there a situation that comes to mind where you had somebody walk in who or you found somebody who didn't think it was going to happen, and you coached them along, and sure enough, you made it happen for them?
You want to do that one?
Sure. I think that these stories are what makes it really inspiring to go to work every day, right? And so the development up in Pasco, the self-help housing program where people are building their own homes, you see that every day. My favorite story, we had two sisters that came into our homeownership center, and they had a dream of owning their own home. They also wanted to own a home on the same street. That's how they grew up, and they wanted to continue. That's how they wanted to raise their families, and they weren't aware of the self-help housing program, but they were like, you all are going to coach us, you're going to support us with our finances, and when we're done, we're going to meet with a realtor and we're going to find two homes that are next to one another. And so after several years of working through finances and coaching, they became really prime candidates for our self-help housing program. They're actually in our cohort right now. So I can't say we haven't seen them in front of their homes, but they've selected lots right next to each other.
Wow.
They're starting construction. They've picked their styles, and they are so thrilled that as siblings, and this was their dream growing up, I would never want to live next door to my siblings, but this is what they wanted, that now they'll be owning homes, they'll be celebrating holidays next to one another. One person can watch the kids while the other person is working or having a good time or whatever it is. And that's the power of that particular community, that it's choose your own. People get to build what they want, and their family, it becomes the people that are around them. And so we have 15 other families, soon to be 30 other families, that will also get to be part of these sisters' story as they work to build homes together and live together on the same block.
That's great. Yeah, at the end of the day, there is something special about that. My father used to call it a mason. My father used to say, at least a mason at the end of the day has the wall that he could stand back and look at and say, that's my wall. I did that today. So it's a similar situation. Instead of just pushing papers around, you're providing a really valuable service. So if one wants to find out more information about how they would qualify for one of these programs, or just in general, where do they go?
So for the tech folks, you just go to our website at neighborworksbrv.org. Lots of ways to contact us there, but that's probably the easiest. We're right around the corner from WOON. They're on Neighbor.
You can stop by and visit us in our office. We are open from 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and we're at 719 Front Street.
Okay. Right down the road.
Really right around the corner. And so we're always happy to, meet with people that want to come in, chat with us, and see if there's opportunities that are available. And you can also give us a call. 401-762-0993.
That's great.
And someone will be happy to answer your call and get you to the right person.
Now, are you both optimistic about the future of what you do? Do you see things? Is it opening up? Are people becoming more aware of this need? Or?
Yeah. Well, I love what I do. So,
sure. I can tell by just by looking at you. You're always smiling. I mean, that's great.
I really enjoy it, and I've been doing it for a couple of years, and it's hard still. It's hard work. I mean, any kind of real estate development, you know as well as I do how it can be hard. But at the end of the day, I think we really help people change their lives for the better. Right. When you got a place to live that you can afford, that's the first thing you got to get in order, I think, before you can really take off in life. So I just see people. I think there's more acknowledgement now of the importance of affordable housing. Like I said, I mean, asked me a couple of years ago whether businesses would start saying, okay, what's the state doing for affordable housing? I would have been hard pressed to give an answer. But now, when I went to that forum a couple of weeks ago, the governor and the Commerce Department, they're really sort of saying, okay, we got to start to align things here because this is going to affect Rhode Island's economic development in the future. So.
And I think the housing summit is next week at the Rhode Island College.
Yes.
Yeah. I was planning on attending. Basically, you're pretty confident that the awareness for this subject is growing, and that for the politicians for lack of a better term, will are recognizing this more and more as an issue, and so we can go forward with it in the future. Yeah.
I like I said before, I see people just look in your own lives. Who in your house, your family, your relations, who needs affordable housing, whether they're starting out or retiring.
Right.
We all just got to look in our own house, and we'll see the need.
Yeah.
So I think.
Yeah.
People
I can't tell you the people I talk to that sometimes it's sad. I mean, their children can't come back to the community that they live in. They're seniors that are being priced out of their homes. They can't afford them anymore, and they'd really like to stay.
They'd like to stay, and there's no apartments usually in the communities where they raise their kids for years and years, and there's no apartment they could go to.
Wow.
I mean, that was an eye opener thing with the Meadows development we did in North Smithfield.
Yeah.
A lot of people owned homes. They sold them, and there were not a lot of apartments.
Right.
So.
And then, of course, where do they go when they get priced out?
Right.
You're going to the next community, which probably has the same problem and the same problem. It's almost like you have to take to the road.
Yeah. Everyone wants to live in Rhode Island now.
Right. Well, and as Rhode Islanders, I think it's a point of pride, and so we need to be able to take care of one another.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thanks, guys, for coming in. And, of course, to recap, we've been talking to Joe Garlick and Meg Rego of NeighborWorks. Next week on Real Estate Pro Talk, we'll have someone to talk about the lead issue and the lead contamination, lead inspection, lead pipes, everything to do with lead. So until then, take care, and we'll talk to you next week.